It's just fucking crazy what's happening.
I know.
All of it.
Fucking hate it.
True.
It's depressing.
Yeah. Alright, so let's get started.
Take some fucking pills for your depression, goddammit.
I don't have medication for that.
That's
I can
good.
send you some.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to W.M.S.T. podcast episode number 64. I am your host, Syed. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the audio links. So here's the cast for tonight's episode. We got Editor-in-Chief Ziggler. What up, Zig?
Hey, what's up? I have no idea what the rest of our cast is. They don't have any fucking excuse. We're under quarantine, man. They're doing nothing.
Yeah.
So unprofessional.
Yeah, they're gonna miss a fun one, man. And of course, as always, we got the Black Orange Cassidy, Cam. What up, Cam?
Can I go outside now?
Unfortunately, you can't. We're all stuck
Maybe
inside.
maybe for a smoke break. I don't know.
Like, I can't go outside for like food or anything.
Yeah, but let's get started with our podcast tonight. So, with everything that's going on, we don't have a lot of topics to cover, but there's some major ones we should definitely hit on. One of them is obviously Chris Benoit's documentary that came out, the series hosted by Vice, called The Dark Side of the Ring. They've done a lot of different wrestling stories with the Von Erichs and all that. So this episode was about the Chris Benoit murder, and a lot of people, obviously his fans and just the entire wrestling industry, like they never, got full like uh, closure with his murder because there's so much like mystery surrounding it, so many conspiracy theories. But it's like Chris Jericho said in the documentary, it's the darkest uh, moment in wrestling history. It almost ended uh, the industry itself. Uh, but yeah, we're all gonna go over our overall thoughts on the documentary and what we thought about it. I thought it was really well done the way it was set up. It was very informative, and they had Jericho, Chavo Guerrero, Jr. And David Benoit, and they had Nancy's sister also on the doing the interview. So it was very informative, and it got very much into the whole thing. It didn't leave anything out. One of the biggest moments for me in the documentary was uh, the relationship between Eddie and Chris Benoit and their brotherhood, and how Eddie was trying to you know help Chris find the higher power, help him get religious and all that, and obviously they covered Eddie's death in this documentary too, and that kind of just showed us like how much Eddie's death impacted Chris and how he spiraled out of control after that. It was just heartbreaking to hear, like, Chavo Guerrero holding Eddie in his last moments. Like, that was, like, heartbreaking. Like, I couldn't, like, hold back tears, to be honest. Like, that was really hard to hear. And, Chris Benoit definitely took it the worst out of anybody. He and that's definitely one of the reasons for all this that happened. Another impact story was David Benoit's story. He was pretty much uh you know just like his father. He was blacklisted from the industry. Like WWE never reached out to him, which is crazy. And I felt really bad for him. Like he wanted to be a tag team champion with his brother, and he's never gonna get that. It's really sad. His story was also really sad. And the one thing I liked about this documentary was it didn't treat the the incident as a like as some kind of conspiracy theory. Oh, somebody was out there to get Chris or something like that. It was just they played it straight up, like they never intended it to, be like, oh, maybe Chris Benoit didn't murder his wife and child, but the evidence, is just so overbearing that that's the only conclusion they can come up to. And they briefly discuss CTE as well, uh, which affects a lot of athletes, obviously, who have a lot of concussions, and Chris was no exception. Like he had concussion after concussion. He talked to Chris Nowitzki about the concussions, and Chris was like, I don't even know how many I've had. Like he's lost count. So, and that's the thing. Like he never took a day off. Like he always kept going. And an athlete like that who takes so many high risk maneuvers, especially that headbutt, flying headbutt, like I mean, you're gonna have some problems, some neck problems, head problems, head trauma. It's crazy. But like overall, outside this horrible tragedy, I guess WWE was able to, uh, implement the new wellness policy, eliminate chair shots, and just uh, reduce the trauma the wrestlers take on the head. So I guess there's some good that came out of this
Does Daniel
tragedy.
Bryan still do the diving headbutt?
I don't think so. I haven't seen him do
He's
it since his neck
doesn't do it
surgery.
often, but like he doesn't do it often. He had to retire the first time just because of the early signs of CTE.
Yeah, so definitely not a move you want to do. Like even Harley Race, the guy who invented the move, was like, "Don't do it." Like it took years off his career, so definitely not a
Dynamite
move.
Kid ended up in a wheelchair because of it. But
Yeah, so
another thing
definitely not.
about that whole diving headbutt thing, if you actually watch the footage that they show, it shows that Harley land. It shows how they land. Race landed on his hands. Dynamite Kid took it on his knees. Benoit just didn't have any way to cushion the fall.
Yeah, it was just yeah. Like every time you see that move, you're like, "Oh man, that's just too much." And also one last thing, I liked how Chris Jericho, reconnected Nancy's sister and David Benoit. That was really nice ending to the documentary. Uh, but yeah, it was just riveting look behind the scenes as to one of the like the darkest moments in wrestling history. It was very well done, and I hope everybody checks it out. It's really good. So let's get your guys' thoughts on it. Ziggler, your thoughts?
Yeah, Chris Benoit is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. It's either him or Kurt Angle or Shawn Michaels. Just those three are the elite of the elite in their prime. And Chris Benoit had a great run in the Ruthless Aggression era in 2004. His run with even in 2003, he was great too. Uh, he was just so good, especially with Kurt Angle. Their matches were awesome. Their tag team, they won the first WWE tag titles, I think, against Edge or Rey Mysterio. Uh, that was a great match. Just Chris Benoit, probably he's one of my favorites of all time, man. Despite of all this, it just sucks what happened. And but watching the documentary was crazy. I mean, they showed information about the tragedy that I didn't know about, and it was just very informative, and it's still insane that it really happened. I still can't believe it even to this day that this happened, and he was just so goddamn great. Him and Eddie, man, and Eddie's death definitely triggered this. I mean, and then you find out that Chris Benoit was abusive to Nancy too. They would always get into screaming matches, and I think he abused her too, physically. And then, yeah, that happened. It was before a pay-per-view too, and he got replaced by John Morrison for the ECW title against CM Punk. Was it Vengeance? Yeah, I think it was Vengeance. And then the Raw after, they did a whole tribute.
Vengeance.
Yeah, then the Raw after, they did a whole tribute show to Chris Benoit, 3-hour tribute show. Just the whole thing was crazy, and I don't know. It's very sad and emotional, especially because Chris had such a great career. He was definitely the hardest working man in the industry at the time, and just the stories that you hear from Chris Jericho on the Dark Side of the Ring and Chavo about him, like, it was just something else. But if you like search up like more like you see like a Chris Jericho podcast, he talks about it like all the time. He has like a few episodes on the Chris Jericho podcast, and it's I don't know, just a documentary. It was great though. It's sad what happened. It is, but Chris Benoit's still one of my he's just one of my favorites. He's just so goddamn good. He has great matches with everyone, and it just sucks. And what got me was like when Chris Jericho said that if Benoit would have known that his legacy will be erased from history forever, that would have just killed him. And I don't know, it sucks. Like, it's just all the steroid abuse and the drug abuse and the CTE, and I don't know, it's just fucking crazy how you can do that to his wife and son.
Yeah, very true. And Cam, your thoughts on the documentary?
I thoroughly enjoyed the entire documentary. Really well done piece on it. Really, like they go in depth with the thing. They don't hold back on all that they feature on the in the documentary. There are so many things that's like it's one of those things where you just want to reach out and hug the people that are on the screen where they're talking about this stuff, like Chavo, Nancy's sister, David, especially. Like they deserve a lot of love just for what they've gone through and the fact that they're sharing all of this. It's it's not tough. It's not easy to try and talk about stuff like this. What basically now Benoit in and of us now Benoit is one of the best wrestlers of all time. Like I watch a lot of his matches. I feature him quite often on my page as a wrestler that has existed. But it's understandable that WWE doesn't want to mention it, despite the fact that they've had at least some passing glances of showing the man, just like him being featured on the network and stuff, him having small cameos in the Ruthless Aggression documentary that came out recently. But it's understandable that they can't mention them because why would you want to promote somebody that did such an unspeakable thing? Your entire legacy is basically tarnished. You almost killed the wrestling industry. You almost almost killed the wrestling industry. All this legacy, your entire legacy of the things that you've done, the great matches that you've had, tarnished. It's a shame that this had to happen. All this could have been avoided if he just took time away to grieve after Eddie Guerrero's passing. But it's a shame. It's a shame all of this had to happen. It's a shame that the company was basically in damage control and didn't reach out to David or Nancy's sister and was basically in damage control just because they had an entire promotion that they had a company that they wanted to defend, and like, you get it, how they want to defend themselves. And like, we're not bad people, even though we've done terrible things on television and in and off television. All of this could all of this was basically a combination of grief of Eddie's passing, drugs, alcohol, testosterone, and a severe case of CTE, multiple concussions. This is before. This was of course around the time frame where CTE and concussions weren't taken as seriously as it is now. This is before like movies like Concussion made it more well known. Like wrestling and even the NFL didn't take it as seriously back then. Now they do, and I'm glad. And if there's something that really could, and if there's something that's actually good to come out of this, is the fact that now that sports are now taking concussions and drug testing a lot seriously. CTE testing is done constantly, and wrestlers are being protected a lot more with the head and neck area. Overall, this is a very well done documentary. If you haven't seen it at all, both parts are on Vice's YouTube channel, so it's up there for free in its entirety. And as for the entire series, I can't. They're gonna talk about New Jack next week.
Yeah, we'll try to link the 2 videos in the description below.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that video, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And click on the channel to check out some more awesome videos like our movie and wrestling debates and our interviews with people like the Wrestling Classic and Jordan Jomo from the IGWC. And we are definitely looking into delivering you all some more content in the near future, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And thank you for your support.